Assalamualaikum and good morning everyone. Welcome to the Agro-Food Productive Webinar on modern poultry processing in Malaysia. We have here Mr. Terry Tan as our moderator. Short introduction about Mr. Terry. He possesses more than 15 years of experience in the poultry industry, specializing in breeding farm management and broiler farm management. He is currently the managing director of KP Asli Sdn Bhd, a leading kampung chicken provider since 2009, and Pangkal Perdana Sdn Bhd, a poultry feed provider. He is also the director of Syarikat Sing Long Hang Breeding Farm Sdn Bhd, that is a pioneer in the breeding of kampung chicken since the 1970s. Aside from managing his own poultry-related businesses, he is also contributing his experience and skill to various industry organizations and associations. He is the current president of the Penang and Province Wellesley Farmers Association since 2017 and the Federation of Livestock Farmers Association of Malaysia since 2019. Now, without further ado, I will pass the session to Mr. Terry Tan. Thank you.
Thank you, Cik Nadia. Good morning to all of you for being here with us today for the webinar on Agro-Food Productive Modern Poultry Processing in Malaysia, jointly organized by Agro-Food Productivity Nexus and Federation and Livestock Farmers Association of Malaysia, and supported by the MPC. I am a moderator for today and the moderator for this webinar again. President of FLFAM, I'm Terry Tan. Before we begin, I would like to thank all of you for participating in our webinar, and also to our panel of respected speakers, Dr. Rohaizan binti Mohd Anuar, Mr. Ong Chai Kin, and Technical Consultant of FLFAM, Dr. Yap Teow Chong. Firstly, we will discuss the key points in poultry processing for good, safe, and wholesome poultry products. Subsequently, we will also explore the marketing opportunities for processed poultry products. As consumers become more educated and informed on the topics of food processing, food safety, environmental issues, animal welfare, and others, poultry producers as food providers have also begun to develop their operation and processes as to better serve this consumer demand and trend. In recent years, agricultural productions and processing has experienced significant development and evolution. Factors that facilitate this evolution, including innovation, technical development, and the advancement of science and technology in poultry productions. Today, with the insights of our speaker, we will examine a few topics and issues related to modern poultry processing in Malaysia and have a glance at how modernized methods may result in more effective and efficient poultry processing. Our speaker will also share their thoughts about the marketing opportunity for processed poultry products in the Malaysian market. Let's welcome to our first speaker, Mr. Ong Chai Kin, to present his topic on key design elements in poultry processing plant. Mr. Ong is a plant manager from Dindings Poultry Processing Sdn Bhd. He is experienced plant manager with over 30 years of experience in poultry processing environment, skill in supervising, leading, and directing tasks in order to achieve optimal productivity and results. Proficient in all aspects of factory operation, budgeting, organizations, and management, establish effective quality control and safety programs, encouraging proactive participation across the manufacturing floor, adapt at motivation team to meet goals and achieve productivities while maintaining high standards of quality expected of the products manufactured at the facility. Welcome, Mr. Ong. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Good morning. Can you see my screen?
Yes, can.
Okay, I'm going to share the key design elements in poultry processing plant. First of all, I would like to share the process and product flow and segregation is a key area for us to have the design elements in poultry processing plant. And also the quality standard, we have to define the quality standard, what we are expected for this processing plant. Also, we have to understand what is our customer awareness and expectations. Also for the legislation, regulatory compliance, as we are aware, in Malaysia, gas stunning and auto killing is not permitted in the country at the moment. Also talk about the equipment and also building design. We have to source for the suitable equipment and building material able to meet the hygiene standards. And also we have to consider for the future expansion if needed. The process flow, we have to consider mainly from the area of supply chain and also cold chain. We need to define the process capacity and also define how many birds per hour and weight range, also the average bird in terms for the process flow chart and also process design. For the process requirement, we have to consider bleeding time, scalding temperature, either air chilling or water chilling, and also the chilling temperature. Product specification, we need to identify what type of the cutting, either we want to process for the 8-piece cut or 9 pieces cut, even 10 pieces cut, and also the weight range. As for the quality standard, we need to know whether we want to produce for local market or export market. And basically, for the plant fundamental design basics, the process flow, people flow, material flow, air flow, and also process water flow is very, very important in terms of the design. So here is the process and also building design concept. First, we talk about this truck leverage, and then we also identify the building block as a live bird, defeathering, administrations, chilling and cutting hall, warehouse and dispatch. We also had to segregate by the low care, basic care, medium care, and also the other area also consider basic care for warehouse and dispatch. We also to consider how we want to put out our locker and also canteen, the material store and also utility support, in order for her to design a proper flow, like the process, how the process should be flow from the low care, basic care, medium care, again back to the basic care. And for the people flow, we had to have segregation for the low care, basic care, medium care, and also the dispatch area. Then for material flow, mainly we have to come from another part of the building, which mainly is surrounded the building block. Also for the utility. And then for the airflow, we have to consider the airflow show from the medium care to the basic care to the low care. And of course, the processed water flow is also very, very important in order for us not to cross-contaminate all the design factors. So you can see from this plot chart, there is a straight line processing from live bird truck layrage to live bird defeathering, administration, tooling, cutting hall, warehouse and dispatch, and then go to the loading dock. So we also have to focus on the machine selections. Basically, for the modern plant, we are also talking about the outstream birdhouse design for suitability. In this case, we are looking for auto bird catcher. What is so good about the auto bird catcher? We are talking about the better load quality, improved animal welfare, more profit and productivity, also higher biosecurity and easy to clean. And beside that, this auto bird catcher, based on the design, we also can see we are using belt conveyor, which is able to reduce the number of catcher and also able to reduce the bruises. Also for the catching time. And this automation equipped with the weighing system to provide the net weight of the bird we are catching. At the live bird layrage, we also had to segregate for not so clean area and also clean area. And then we had to have the truck washing area, also to have the clean drawer and truck to pick up area. To reduce the bird stress and panting, we need to equip with the blue or red lighting, good ventilation system, adequate air change, misting system, sufficient layrage time. These parameters is also to consider whether the temperature control at this area, it is good to calm down the birds. And for the sufficient layrage time, basically we are looking at about half an hour to 2 hours. The automated to drive higher efficiency, if we want to compare the conventional way and the modern processing plant, you can see the conventional way, we always using coop system. The modern plant, we are talking about the drawer system. What is so good about the drawer system compared to the coop system? You may be aware that the coop system, we only can contain the birds, about 10 to 12 birds in a single coop. And then for the drawer system, we're able to contain about 300 birds. And also for the coop system, we have to step out to 8 or 9 steps. And this is also in terms of the operations, there's a risk for people in terms of the safety. Sometimes during the activity, it may fall down. And then compared to the drawer system, which is fully automated, we had the benefit of the cleaning. It's easier to clean out for the drawer compared to the coop system. And then in terms of the handling, there's so much more benefit and also efficient compared to coop system. As for the manual gizzard harvesting, compared to the fully automated harvesting, as today modern plant, which we can see the efficiency is so much improved. The conventional way of harvesting this gizzard and also liver, we are using a lot of these operators, also using scissors to separate the gizzard from the giblet pad compared to fully harvested. this giblet system, which we don't need any operators in this area. The system is very effective and efficient. For the conventional plant, after we process the birds, go to the spin chiller. If let's say we have to use rehang method, rehang into the conveyor belt. If we are using air chilling, there's a continual flow, and for the people to do the grading is a challenge. For the modern plant, we are implemented or we are using this camera system or image system, which we can using the picture as a reference. We can define the quality levels based on our needs, based on our defined process area, and also others criteria. And the grading, we can grade out to many levels as we wish. We can grade according to our customer expectations, which is very consistent and also can produce a very good results. And for the manual cut compared to automated cutting, the manual cut, basically, we only can cut 4 to 5 birds per operator per minute, compared to the machine cut, which the capacity is much higher. In terms of the cutting accuracy, the newer version of the automated cutting machine, which also can perform a very good accurate cutting, and also can meet all the key customer specifications, especially we talk about the young standards and also others international standards. There are no problems to meeting with the newer version of automated cutting machines. The automated cutting machine, we can cut for either 9 pieces, 8 pieces, or 10 pieces. It's depending on how we construct or how we customize the machine, which ACM, we can have a very high speed. The cutting accuracy, the quality is very consistent, and also will reduce the risk compared to the manual cutting, which using the people, sometimes they will injure during the cutting. The ACM, we will take away all these fears from the operators. And also, we are able to cut for the multiple parts and also different requirements. You can see from the picture, the ACM, we also can cut for either 3 joint, mid joint, drummet, and also quarter cut, quarter leg, anatomical leg, bone-in tie transits. And this automated cutting machine will be in line with the data captured by weighing system, and also image system can facilitate the ACM machine can perform precise cutting based on the predefined program. And this machine also can have the optional bypass cutting modules to provide flexibility based on the customer requirements. So also we can base on the bell curve and also quality of the birds to produce SKUs for specific parts. For the breast deboner, there is many versions in the market. This is a fully automated breast deboner. We have the optional can produce for different SKU. We can have the butterfly cut, single breast, double breast, and also breast with the inner fillet, or we have the separated fillet. So with this all automated machine, we will reduce the handling, and will improve our product quality in terms of the microbial. And this ACN, this auto breast deboner, we also can meet all the key customer specifications. We also talk about this inline automated thigh deboner with very high throughput, consistent yield, and improved efficiency. The manual thigh deboning, basically, per person, we only can debone about 6 to 8 pieces per minute. For the machine, we're able to debone out to 200 or 240 pieces per minute, which is a very high speed machine. It can be inline, equipped with the ACM together. And beside all this equipment, the cutting equipment, we also focus on the comprehensive packing solutions. Prior to the packing, we also talk about the X-ray machine. We also consider this robotic arm. We can do all the high premium product packing with this thermoforming machine. Of course, we also can have the belt grader to have the individual parts and also assemble parts and all the different type of packing. And this will make our operators so much easier and also simpler to manage our production area. And of course, with all these parts, we also look into our report generations. We're talking about the instant informations. With the modern plant, we also using the production control software compared to conventional plant, which we are using this Excel spreadsheet. With this modern plant production control software, we able to provide this instant info, talk about the input, and then compare to the output. And of course, also we able to track the sales order fulfillment status, and also be able to come up with all the KPIs, talk about production, productivity, quality, equipment performance, as well as OEE, overall equipment effectiveness. And we are aware that with the conventional plant operation method, especially after we pack our products, we had to do the sorting based on the SKU. At our conventional plant, we require a huge space or footprint to do the sorting based on the SKU. It all depends on how many SKU we have. With today modern plant, we can reduce the footprint. We can build the temporary holding storage area, which also can be automated. We don't need operators, to do the sorting. All the products produced after crating will go direct to this temporary storage system. And upon this sales order picking, we can call out from this temporary storage area by customers, also by order, which is very flexible. This is mainly for the fresh products. As for the frozen products, as we are aware, as a conventional plant, we are using block freezer to do the freezing. And before we do the freezing, we have to sort out all the products. And by batching, we will to transfer into our brush freezing, and we had to have the specific downtime inside the freezing area without knowing that either it's whole chicken, color parts, and also bonus products. We had to use the same amount of the freezing time if, let's say, we are missing all the parts in the block freezer. Compared to modern plant we are using, carton freezer. Carton freezer, we can have either single retention time or multiple retention times. So single retention time is about the same with the blood freezer, which we are talking about. The tail time is the same. If the design is for 8 hours, 10 hours, will be fixed at 8 to 10 hours. And then we have the flexibility. We also can design for the multiple retention times, which we can aim for the different product for different timing. We also can sort out according to the time we can predefine. Either the bonus product we want to freeze for 6 hours, cut-out product we want to freeze for 7 hours, and hope we want to freeze for 10 hours, which we can be programmed. And also, this product can be called out upon our sales order picking. We can align with fresh and also frozen to do the sales order picking at the same time. So for the storage, as today, modern plant, we can consider using this automated storage and also retrieval system. We are talking about the ASRS. The benefit of the ASRS is increased throughput capabilities, increased accuracy levels, provides highest possible storage density, save out floor space, enhance product security, provides real-time inventory control. Of course, with this ASRS, we can do so much than what I share here. We also talk about, we can practice the FIFO. We can on-hold certain products in by demand the system. And we also can reserve a certain stock for the priority as customers and also for the assignment for container. Besides that, we also can in line with our this loading process, which we can use auto-guided vehicle or laser-guided vehicle. Without the operators, we also can call out all the stocks. We can go direct from the storage to the trucks. And this is a very advanced systems. And in the modern plants, all these technologies available. It's all about how we want to design the plant. What is our automation level we are talking about? And today, technology and also automations, we can do a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ong, for your valuable sharing. And I can see a lot of slides that are talking about a lot of technologies. And thank you for your valuable insights on the key design elements in a poultry processing plant. Mr. Ong just highlighted the automations to drive a higher efficiency and a new technology to drive a consistent quality, such as the ACM. That's what you can see from his slides. And the ASRS, the cold chain system. This is a current technology that we should look into that. And I believe the Europe and other developed countries, they have been adopting this technology. In Malaysia, I believe that there are some plants, they are using this technology as well. And we can see from the presentation of Mr. Ong, some of the people are moving to the digitalizations, big data and IoT or technology. And once again, thank you for your sharing your valuable experience in the industry. And I believe there will be a lot of questions from the floor to seek for your answers about the modern slaughter plants. Next, we go to the second speaker. Let's welcome to our second speaker, Dr. Rohaizan binti Mohd Anuar, to present her topic on control points and critical control points in poultry processing. Dr. Rohaizan was graduated from UPM in 2006 and joined FFM Farm Sdn Bhd in 2006 as farm veterinarian that responsible in flock health and biosecurity management in the layer farm. She started her career in Department of Veterinary Services in 2009 at Veterinary Inspection Section. She is currently the Senior Assistant Director at Veterinary Inspection and Certification Section, Veterinary Regulatory Division, Department of Veterinary Services, where she is in charge of veterinary inspection of processing plant and poultry slaughterhouses in Malaysia. We coordinate the veterinary inspection for export application to Singapore, China, Indonesia, Japan, and other countries. She involved in the inspection of processing plant and oversee abattoir for local raw material requirement. She is actively involved in meat inspection training as a trainer for DBS, meat inspector, and poultry processing plant. Welcome, Dr. Rohaizan. The floor is yours, and go ahead. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Terry, for the introduction. The topic that given to me is control point and critical control point in poultry processing. And I think this topic is very technical, and I will try to make it as simple as possible for the better understanding. Okay, this is my presentation outline. I will talk briefly on what is HACCP, control point, critical control point, and critical limits. The importance of HACCP implementation in poultry processing, the 7 principles of HACCP, and I will discuss on what is the factor that contributing the failure of the HACCP system. Okay, I think everyone is familiar with HACCP, which is a universally recognized approach for preventing the food system failure. HACCP is a systemic approach, a management system for the assurance of food safety. It identifies, evaluates, and controls hazard, which is biological, physical, chemical, and allergen, if applicable, to ensure the food safety. There are 3 main keywords in HACCP, which is prevent, reduce, and eliminate. The word HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points. For the control point, is an action or procedure that will reduce, prevent, or eliminate a potential hazard. For the critical control point, is a step at which a control measure is applied. And for the critical limit, it is a maximum and or minimum value for controlling a chemical, biological, physical, or allergen, if applicable, parameter. So when we talk about HACCP, we keep asking what is the importance of HACCP implementation in poultry processing. Actually, meat and poultry products are sensitive to microorganism contamination by bacteria, viruses, and parasites. After contaminated, the meat and poultry product provide an excellent environment for the growth of the bacteria, and the bacterial contamination and growth is a problem because it may result in the food illness, foodborne illness. Other than microorganism contamination, such as physical and chemical residue, might be accidentally contaminating the poultry product during production or marketing stages. So the HACCP system will improve the product safety by anticipating and preventing the hazard before they occur. Okay, there are a few benefits of implementing HACCP, which is improvement of processing procedure efficiency, decrease of product recalls, meet the regulatory demand such as DBS and other agency, and also the importing countries. When you want to export to other countries, you need to have the HACCP. Enhancement of firm reputation will lead to cost reduction, and the last one is increase of profit due to customer confidence. So this is the 7 principle of hazard. Principle number 1 is identification of hazard and determination of control measure. Number 2 is determination of CCP. Number 3 is we need to establish the critical limit for each CCP. Number 4, establish a monitoring system for each CCP. Number 5, corrective action for deviation that may occur. Number 5, establish verification procedure. And the last one is record keeping and documentation. So by looking on an example of practice production, actually the 7 principle hazard can be implemented starting from the receiving of raw mat during the production and also after the production to until to the distribution of the practice. This is to ensure that the practice is safe for the consumer. Okay, the most important things to develop hazard or to start hazard is to have knowledge and experience with regard to the product, raw material and process, and the hazard itself. So this is the product description. I just want to share. The product description is a important document that contains a complete document of the specific product that can be used. The information such as like, for example, the highlighted one is for the principle number 1. Okay, as you can see in the slide, this is the basic process flowchart for frozen or chilled whole chicken. The process step start from the receiving live bird, hanging, antemortem inspection, stunning, bleeding, scalding, defeathering, washing, head removal, feet cutting, evisceration, postmortem inspection, washing inside and outside, spin chilling, packing, storage, and distribution. From the process flowchart, we can see that the raw material or packaging material that involved, such as live bird, water, chlorine, plastic bag, or ice. In additional requirement for the poultry slaughterhouse, the premise shall have meat inspector in line at the antemortem inspection and the postmortem inspection to carry out meat inspection. This is to ensure that the meat from animal is free from disease, wholesome and safe for human consumption. Okay, we go to the principle number 1, the most important step in the hazard, which is identification of hazard and determination of control measure. So this is an example of how we do the principle number 1. We need to identify all the hazard and the control measure. We need to list all the raw material ingredients and the process step. And then we need to identify the potential hazard for each ingredient. There are 4 types of hazard, which is biological, chemical, physical, and allergen, if applicable. And then we need to analyze the hazard based on food safety hazard matrix and establish the control measure. All the information need to be documented in the hazard analysis worksheet. So that both need to do the principle 1. Okay, this is an example of hazard analysis worksheet for the raw material, principle number 1. So we need to list down all the raw material or packaging material in the worksheet. And then I take an example of the raw material, for example, live bird. So from here, we need to the potential biological hazard such as Salmonella species, E. coli, Campylobacter, and etc. And for chemical, maybe antibiotic residue, a pesticide. For physical, sand or feather, and others. So each hazard need to analyze by using the hazard matrix. So we go to the next. I will show you. This is the food safety hazard matrix. It is a risk evaluation multiplication of the likelihood and severity of a hazard in the food. So as you can see, this is the likelihood and this is the severity. For value number 1 until 10, it's essential to have a control measure in place to reduce the food safety. For value number 11 until 25, it depends on the hazard team to decide whether it is to have a control measure in place to reduce the food safety hazard. Now we go back to the hazard analysis worksheet for the raw material. Once we do the analysis based on the food hazard matrix, we need to determine the rationale for inclusion or exclusion as a hazard for each the significant hazard. So this is for example, and then we need to determine the preventive measure or control applied to prevent this significant hazard. For example, maybe we can buy live bird from the reliable or reputable supplier that provide assurance. For example, from my Yap farm. Okay, this is the principle number 2, determination of critical control point. We are using the CCP decision tree for the raw material and process step. So CCP decision tree is a tool to decide whether the hazard control point is a critical control point or not. So this is an example of the principle number 2. As you can see, for the raw material, there are 3 questions that we need to answer to check whether it is hazard or not. So this is the raw materials CCP decision tree. 3 questions that we need to answer, and the question will lead to the answer whether it is a sensitive, the sensitive raw material is CCP or not. Okay, this is the hazard analysis worksheet for the process step. For the principle 2, as you can see, there are 4 questions. Okay, this is the process step CCP decision tree, and all the question will lead to decide whether the process step is critical control point or not. Okay, I'm going to show the example of CCPs in the poultry processing plant. Okay, so for example, evisceration, spin chilling, inside-outside washing and storage, and also the metal detector and cooking. So next is principle number 3, determination of critical limit. Critical limit for each CCP shall be specific, able to prevent, reduce, eliminate the hazard. CL is whether qualitative or quantitative. An example of qualitative is zero tolerance of fecal spoilage. It must be supported by documents such as SOP, specification, validation, and training. And for the quantitative, such as a temperature, time, pH, sieve size, and others. Okay, critical limit must be validated. The source can be from scientific publication, regulatory guidelines, expert, or experimental studies, maybe in-house experiment done in the processing itself. Okay, beside critical limit, there is another term, operating limits, also called as action limit value, criteria that are more stringent than critical limit to reduce the risk of a deviation. Operating limit may be selected for various reasons, maybe due to quality reason or to avoid exceeding a critical limit. So this is an example of critical limit for each CCP, as you can see from the slide. Okay, now I proceed to principle 4, monitoring system for each CCP. A monitoring system shall be established for each CCP relative to its critical limit. Why we need to monitor to detect deviation or to identify trend towards loss of control at CCP and take action to correct the situation before a deviation occurs. There are 4 main questions for the monitoring. What to monitor, how to monitor, when, and who. This is to assess if the CCP is operating within the critical limits. So this is the example of what to monitor. For example, product temperature, and how to monitor. We are using the thermometer. And then when to monitor is according to a determined frequency. There are 2 types, whether continuous monitoring or non-continuous monitoring. Continuous monitoring is preferred. Continuous record need to be observed periodically. The example of continuous monitoring, such as time and temperature recording chart or metal detector. And for the non-continuous monitoring, it must be used when continuous monitoring is not possible. This one is such as temperature check of cooked meat at specified interval. So who is going to monitor the critical limit? Actually, any personnel that is well trained in the CCP monitoring technique, such as line operators, supervisor, QC personnel, can monitor the critical limit. So next we go to principle number 5, determination of corrective action for each CCP. Corrective action need to be done when deviation at the critical limit occur. Is to prevent food hazard from reaching customer or consumer. Corrective action shall be done to both product and process. So this is an example of CCP monitoring log sheet. As you can see, the CCP monitoring procedures is critical limit and corrective action information need to documented in the CCP monitoring log sheet. Next is the principle number 6, the determination of verification procedure. The organization shall establish and maintain documented procedure for verification. The purpose of verification to determine whether the hazard plan is working or the operation are in compliance with hazard plan, or to demonstrate ongoing effectiveness of hazard system. So from the slide you can see this is the verification that we can carry out, such as internal audit, management review, or other monitoring activities such as at the CCP location, frequencies, corrective action, calibration, and product testing. So other than verification, we can do validation. The validation is by obtaining evidence in advance to ensure the implemented hazard system will effectively control the hazard. So it can carry out by hazard plan prior to implication, control measure, when there are changes to the operation. Okay, this is an example of validation activities such as shelf life of the product, specification, CCP determination, and critical limit established, and etc. Okay, the last one of the principle number 7 is documentation and record keeping. The establishment shall establish a documented hazard system and shall maintain the hazard system. The hazard record that should be maintained, such as hazard plan, hazard analysis worksheet, CCP of record of the CCP monitoring, record of corrective action, or record of verification activities. So we keep here news about the food-borne illness, and then we know that something is not right about the hazard system. So actually, when we go back to the 7 principle of hazard, each principle might be contributing to the failure of the hazard system. For example, we can have a look to the principle number 1. It could be due to the hazard identification, maybe lack of the technical knowledge, or the hazard identification not done thoroughly, or it could be due to ineffective preventive measure, or the preventive measure not in place. For the principle number 2, maybe the CCP due to the lack of understanding decision tree and the identification done not proper or not updated review on suitability and verified. And for the principle number 3, for the critical limit, maybe the critical limit not appropriate. It could be based on could be instead of should be, not validated and not updated and review on suitability. And for the principle number 4, maybe the monitoring, there's inadequate monitoring frequency, improper monitoring method, or the monitoring not carried out properly, not updated, and review on the suitability. And for the principle number 5, it could be to the correction ineffective, fail to remove hazard, and fail to prevent recurrence, or the correction is incomplete or not in place. And for the principle number 6, the verification might be not done, not comprehensive due to lack of understanding and lack of skilled personnel not in place, or it could be just for the sake. And the last one is the principle number 7, which is documentation. Maybe the document not updated, inappropriate, or improper. Okay. Next, a lack of management commitment, lack of awareness of hazard, lack of personal training, variability of product lines, and individuality of each product and customer demand, and small size of enterprise have been found have negative effect on hazard implementation in poultry processing. and also the cost of development as well as maintenance of the system constitute to the constraint. Okay, as a conclusion, HACCP was designed to prevent hazardous product from leaving the manufacturing or processing facility. The proper and comprehensive the identification of control point and CCP are to ensure the implementation of HACCP system is in place and effective. The key to success of HACCP are the top management commitment, competency of the HACCP team member, and employee training, behavior, and attitude. Although HACCP provides assurance that poultry is safe, there is no way to completely eliminate all hazard. So HACCP is most effective when used with other control system. Okay, with that, I think that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Dr. Rohaizan.
Pass to Mr. Terry for the next session.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rohaizan, for your comprehensive presentation. And it's very detailed. After going through your listening to your presentation, I believe all of us have a good knowledge, the importance of a HACCP, and we should practice that in the industry. Okay. Then we move on we will proceed with the third speaker. We proceed with the third speaker, Dr. Yap Teow Chong, our technical consultant of FLFAM. Again, and Dr. Yap, we'll see you again here. And you could please turn on your video maybe. All right, I'm going to introduce Dr. Yap. Today he is going to present the topic of market segments for processed poultry products. He is a veterinarian graduating from the University of Melbourne in 1972. His postgraduate study included a diploma on food hygiene and veterinary public health from the Royal Agriculture University, Copenhagen, and a master degree from Mohd University, West Australia. He has worked in the Department of Veterinary Services for 14 years, 20 years in the Malaysian poultry industry, and 10 years with WHO and FAO as an international expert on AI and food safety risk mitigation in poultry supply chain in various countries. Currently, he is now a technical consultant to FLFAM. Welcome, Dr. Yap, and I hope that you enjoy the last presentation in this webinar number 9. The floor is yours, Dr. Yap.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Terry, our moderator for the day. And good morning, participants and ladies and gentlemen. My topic today would be actually to talk on the market segments on for poultry, processed poultry products. It's a very big topic. I'll try to synthesize as much as I can into 30 minutes. Now, the poultry industry is a very robust, viable industry. It has more than 3,000 farms with an average growth rate of about 5%. Of course, lately, in the last few years, it probably only growing at about 1 to 2%. It has a very big, large ex-farm value of nearly 10 billion ringgit. And daily, there's probably about 1.8 currently about chicken marketed every day in Peninsular Malaysia through various channels and market segments. And of course, poultry products are a stable source of protein in the country. Malaysia consumers actually eat a lot of chicken and consume a lot of eggs. We have one of the highest per capita consumption in the in the world, actually. Now, I'm going to spend a little bit of time here talking about the marketing pathways, because I think to understand this subject of market segments, we first have to understand the marketing pathways, whereby how the products from the farm gets down to the market and gets down to the consumer. Now, there are basically two, I've given two shades here. One is in yellow, another in blue and green. And you can see that follow the yellow line would be from the smaller individual broiler farms, and coming to what's called a group of traders called live bird wholesalers. And they would normally have also probably have slaughter facilities, or they could go direct to the traditional markets. Now, traditional markets can be subdivided into wet markets and dry markets. Now, this live bird wholesaler may also send the product directly to the traditional market, but this is used to be a very big pathway avenue before, because previously wet markets were very much enforced, but today many of the wet markets are replaced by dry markets. So as such, and also mini marts and so on. As such, now we have gone into what we call a lot of slaughterhouses. Now there are two types of slaughterhouses. I will go into that a little bit more. But you see the other green pathway, where we have seen this transformation in the poultry industry, where a lot of the smaller farms have been taken up under the umbrella of integrators, mainly as contract farms. So today, about 80% of our small broiler farmers are working as a contract farmers to the integrators. Now, so a lot of these integrators are also still selling their bird to the live bird wholesalers, who then subsequently slaughter them and take them to the market. The integrator, many of them now have developed their own slaughterhouses, and from their own slaughterhouses, then they come out with what is called already a processed product. That processed product will find itself again to product distributors or wholesalers, and then to the market. And at the same time, some of these slaughterhouses in the integrator, many of which are actually in the VHM logo. That means they are veterinary inspected under the jurisdiction of the Department of Veterinary Services. And I think you heard Dr. Rohaizan talking about HACCP just now, control points and HACCP. She is talking largely about this group of slaughterhouses. Now, unfortunately, this group of slaughterhouses are not, the non-VHM don't really practice the HACCP or the GMP practices in many of these slaughterhouses. Some maybe do, but most of them don't. Now, the integrators here, the slaughterhouses can be very big, different level of sophistication. I think you heard this morning a presentation by Mr. Ong Chai Kin, and he's talking about the latest modern technology in VHM slaughterhouses. But of course, some are not as sophisticated as the one that Mr. Ong presented. But nevertheless, they belong to the category of VHM local plants. This, by the way, the non-VHM slaughter facilities are largely under the jurisdiction of the municipal councils. Now, if I were to trace that where do they go to? I say they go to distributors, but they also go direct to the traditional markets. And a lot of traditional markets are actually taking from this kind of slaughterhouses. And besides that, they also sell to some of the modern trade or HoReCa, but not so much to the modern trade now, because modern trade are more keen now to receiving the product from VHM logo plants. But we'll come to modern trade a little bit more. The The slaughterhouses that are in the VHM category, they also supply to manufacturers, and from there it goes also to the QSR. Of course, many of the VHM slaughterhouses also go direct to modern trade and also go direct to QSR. Now, what about for export? Export, we have from the contract farmers, the integrators, under the supervision integrators, we have been exporting live bird and eggs to Singapore. But from the slaughterhouses, we can also we have been and they can export poultry products for the export market, Singapore, Japan, Hong Kong, and so on. The other thing is many of the manufacturers are also exporting their products. That is a further processed product. Of course, some of these FPP manufacturers, they are also importing some of their raw material from other countries as well. We'll talk more about that some other day. Now, it is important here to recognize that this line of marketing still is a very substantial line of marketing, probably still about 50% of the birds of the total production are going through this kind of live bird wholesalers and non-VHM slaughterhouses going into the traditional markets, and also to some of the HoReCa as well. The other thing is, of course, this integrator are going to the modern trade, which are also taking up a fair bit of percentage. The integrator contract slaughterhouses do sell some of their product to the wholesalers, which also take to some of the traditional markets as well as to HoReCa. So I think in a nutshell, you can see that this is a very complex marketing pathway. They overlap somehow, although there are some major trends that one can identify, and there are some minor trends now. It used to be a major, but now a minor trend of marketing pathway. There are the number of poultry integrators. We can quickly summarize and say that about 15 of them, big and small. Some are just mainly on eggs. Some are both eggs and broilers. And some are more specializing on day-old chicks and so on and so forth. But most of them, many of them, those that are dealing with broiler would also have slaughterhouses. Now, in contrast, I was talking to you about some of the small slaughterhouses versus some of the slaughterhouses in the integrators bearing the VHM logo. But VHM represents Veterinary Health Mark. The Veterinary Health Mark is a logo issued by the Department of Veterinary Services. I think you can easily identify that. Dr. Rohaizan was the one who was talking about this. Now, in many of the small slaughterhouses that are not under the VHM, the hygiene and sanitation is very questionable. And I think this, unfortunately, are the ones that are going into the wet markets, especially. And I think this is something that we need to look at, wet markets and dry markets. Whereas this VHM logo is going to more of the modern trade. Now, I'm going to look at 7 market segments. Now, when I define market segment here, I also include manufacturers. Some authorities will not define manufacturers as a market segment. But here I'm looking at market segment from the definition from producers and processors point perspective. And therefore, manufacturer, which normally we would define as what we call an end user. That means they take the product and then they would manufacture it to go on to that. But it is nevertheless a market segment of the producer. It's a market segment of the producer, market segment of the processor, but you don't normally consume food from the directly at the manufacturer's premises. But the rest are very understandable. Modern trade, these are, I've covered just now market, traditional market. I'll talk a little bit more about traditional markets in a little while. Modern trade are the hypermarkets, supermarkets, mini marts, food marts. Now, mini marts, there are many, and that include all the super fresh, fresh farm, fresh product, this kind of mini marts, food marts. Now, another term that's very commonly used is HORECA, which stands for hotel, restaurant, and cafe. I'm going to take this, actually, this definition and that abbreviation that comes from European industries. In our Malaysian context, the word restaurant is a lot more, and cafes even. Restaurant and cafes are more, there's more diversity in this category than in the European context. I think if you go to Europe, you don't see such a wide variety of restaurants. But I think here, you see restaurants here in Malaysia in a very diverse point of view. Even sometimes in a coffee shop, they call it a restaurant. Then, of course, there are very well-defined quick service restaurants where you can have a quick serve meal. You queue up at the counter, and then you can get for the dine-in or to take away, or they also do delivery, especially in this COVID-19 days. And some now, and many of them now have also drive-through or drive-in. So you don't even get out of the car in many of these QSR restaurants. I talked about manufacturers just now. I'll come back to this again a little bit. They are basically the people like Ramly Burger or people, a company like McFood, which mainly service to McDonald's. There's one segment that is coming up in a little bit more prominence today, especially in the COVID-19 days, and it's e-commerce. And these are supported very often by food delivery services. You can have Food Panda, Grab Food, and what have you. And so you can order your favorite pizza, or you can order your favorite chow mein or whatever, fried noodles, Hokkien fried noodles, and so on and so forth, through a lot of these food delivery services. And this, especially for the people who are busy or cannot go out because of COVID-19, it has now become a new norm. Now, whether how strong will it be after COVID-19 is still left to be seen, to be gauged, to be assessed. One of the things that e-commerce has not taken off before, because in Malaysia, restaurants are easily available from many hours of the day. Sometimes you can go to in any shopping, any housing estate, any taman, you will find that there are restaurants. Sometimes some of them are open up to about 11 p.m. at night. And so it's not difficult to get a quick meal, whether it's a simple char kway teow or roti canai with chicken curry, etc. And a lot of the restaurants, therefore, are open and easily available, unlike in Europe or US. So I think e-commerce is something, so many people just drive around or walk to the nearest restaurant of their favorite place for their meals and not order online. But with COVID-19, a lot of it was ordered online. Now, as I said, after COVID-19, what will happen to e-commerce? This is something left to be seen. We are doing some export, but our export is largely live broiler and eggs and some processed products. And these live broiler and eggs are, of course, to Singapore, but the processed products Now we're finding new markets. And this is an area of growth for exports. Now, let me go back and talk a little bit more about the traditional markets, wet markets particularly. Now, actually, wet market is not really new in this country. You can see from these pictures here, we can have traditional markets going back to the colonial days and also when the new migrants came to Malaya. If you look at this picture here, this man, and this, by the way, was the central market before in the 1800s, central market in Kuala Lumpur in the 1800s. You look at him, he's wearing a pigtail on the hair, and that you can identify he's a man still dressed in the Qing dynasty in China, that kind of attire. So he's a new migrant. He has not forgotten his attire back in China with the long pigtail, so that hair is combed and dressed like a pigtail, a queue at the back. This is kind of the market in the days. That market, of course, changed, and it came to be in the 1930s. At that time, a modern structure, a central market. You go inside there, you look at the interior, very high ceiling, very airy view. That high ceiling gives you better ventilation and then also compared to the ceiling here and very dark here. So this is a lot brighter and less odor, but it was still a wet market. Today, central market in year 2020, in fact, even before this, has now been converted to just a art and craft shop, art and craft center. So the wet markets, I'm trying to tell you, wet markets are changing. Now, these are, again, some wet markets concept. Sometimes a wet market is not necessarily a market inside a house condition. You find that it is just a hawker area along one of the roads that are identified. This was SS2. This picture was taken some time back. Now it is a lot better. Now SS2 has changed. They have a roof over the area where this store was. Now, so you can see the chicken are eviscerated and sold. Here again, this is Selayang wholesale market. They will do the slaughter and either within the Selayang market or just outside Selayang market, and they'll be selling there. This was in Old Klang Road. Just outside the market, they also have a poultry processing area, and then they sell the freshly slaughtered inside the market. So this is a kind of stalls in a wet market. But this kind of wet market are slowly in the larger towns giving way to dry markets. Why dry wet markets have been replaced by dry markets? One of the large concern of the municipal council or city council was the pollution. And every day they had to spend a lot of money cleaning the market, cleaning the waste pollution from the poultry slaughter in the market. And so this poultry, after slaughter now, they are slaughtered outside the market somewhere, outside the market, not in the market itself, and then bring to the market. But they are also delivered to the market fresh daily, marketed on a daily basis. And this is an example in Shah Alam of a dry market, the stall inside the dry market selling chicken. Now, the trend is changing in some countries, like this is an example in Singapore, where even in this dry market, now this is a hawker, this is a market, a traditional market in a market center in Singapore. The chicken are not sold exposed like this, but they are in actually chillers or refrigerated chillers. Simply in Bangkok, many of the poultry now sold in Bangkok are not sold in an open concept like this, but sold in chillers, whereby it's almost similar to what you see in modern trade. Of course, the products in the traditional markets are fairly similar. They focus on whole bird, and whole bird is here they are doing a lot of times what they call a standard cut. a standard dressed chicken, that means with the head and feet on. So they sell you the chicken with head and feet on, and then if you want, they can cut off the feet for you and chop off the head for you as a service. But you pay for the feet, you pay for the head and the neck together. And of course, this super chicken is sold without the head and feet on. Some dry markets sell them, but basically it is sold as a standard dress, and then they cut it off and became a super for you. Now, many of the traditional markets are also selling parts. They can sell giblets, they can sell quarter cuts, and so on and so forth. Or you can sell you a whole leg. Now, let's move on to modern trade. And the modern trade, now these are a growing market trend, but as it stands today, they are still lose out to the traditional market. So the bulk of the poultry sold in the country is through the traditional market, and I think modern trade only doing about 20 to 30% of the poultry sold in terms of marketing. Examples are Giant, Tesco, and so on. Now they sell whole chicken. As a lady here is taking a whole chicken, looking at it, and picking which is the whole chicken that they want. But they are also now a lot of the hypermarkets, supermarkets are selling the parts in tray packs, and this kind of tray packs make it very convenient for the housewife to buy. They don't have to buy the whole chicken. They can buy just drumsticks or wings or what have you, and work on them. Now, another area of promotion that the modern trade, that the hypermarkets, supermarkets are working on is promoting a special branded super dressed chicken. They're branded as antibiotic free, hormone free, omega enriched, especially on the eggs, omega plus eggs, and so on. And with the health conscious people are looking for some of this. Of course, in the modern trade, especially in the bigger ones, they are insisting that they must get their supply from VHM logo plants. So this is an area of growth. So traditional markets, wet markets, slowly replaced by dry markets. The young people love to visit the modern trade, not the older generation. No, the older generation also, but the young generation don't like to visit wet market. Now, as I said, what some of the reasons for why the young generation, the millennials, like to look at shopping in modern trade? Because air conditioned comfort, long operating hours. Many of the traditional markets, after 12 o'clock, you hardly see any more trade there. Plenty of ample parking space, and as I said, VHM plants. So they know that this is food safety. And the product can be kept in the home refrigerator without too much of a worry. Many people, housewives today, they don't go to the market every day, especially if they're working couples. They would buy 2 days a week or 1 day a week or 3 days a week, and then a lot of times they are actually kept in the refrigerators. Now, so the modern trade, they can keep their products in chillers and freezers to maintain the freshness. Now, I mentioned just now about Horeca, and as I said, I like to take the definition of Horeca, unlike the European definition, to a little bit more wider, to include some of these are actually brew house and a few others. Uncle Don's, some of them are actually just drinking places. But we have also many other restaurants where you can go in and dine in, Pizza Huts and Secret Recipe. Now, there are many mama restaurants in Malaysia whereby you can go in and have tandoori chicken or curry chicken and so on and so forth. And many Malaysian restaurants are also a very diverse category. A very distinct category, of course, is the quick service restaurant I mentioned, and Subway is increasing in popularity. The e-commerce, I talked about e-commerce just now, the manufacturers and the export market. Now, again, I think this is Orica. It's an iconic business. I think you recognize some of the brands that I put in here. I'm not publicizing any of the brand. I'm just giving you an example of what a mama restaurant like this one. I put this picture. This is Pelita. I could have put in Nasi Kandar Kayu or something like that, but I'm not promoting Pelita as such. Now, when many of the traditional markets and distributors of wholesalers are also targeting to a lot of these chicken rice shops, stalls. The chicken rice shops, like some specialized TCRS, chicken rice shop, the chicken rice shop, are very popular and expanded very fast. There's a Ipoh chicken rice, many of you will recognize. When you go to, then you go to Ipoh, the Lo Wong, Choi Kai, or Lo Wong chicken and tauge, you recognize them. There's a branch, a franchise called TK Chong, which also specializes on selling chicken. Nam Hyong also selling and chicken rice. But you go to any coffee shop in Malaysia, invariably you'll find someone selling chicken rice. And of course, they have two types. One is steamed chicken rice. They call it a Hainanese chicken rice. And of course, the roast chicken. And this is an example of a plate of steamed chicken rice. Manufacturers, many of them are actually working on snack foods. That means patties, sausages, meatloaf, nuggets, and so on. But of course, many are also move on to ready-to-eat meals. So value meals, again, these are traded through a modern trade, and where a busy housewife can pick up a value meal and send it out. But these are very common going through some of the fast food restaurants. So a manufacturer can be supplying this to their clients, which are quick service restaurants. This you can see is a breaded thigh meat, in between the bun. You can also now go into more exciting things than just a patty. A breaded patty is basically what's called breaded patty. You can go into little pieces of chicken breaded and taking on a name of karage, which is Japanese. Or now this is a very traditional product. It's not a Western product, boxing chicken, although you'll find it in US as well. But this product is not new. Now, time factor, I must remember that. Basically, they say there are now 7 market segments, including manufacturers, because I'm looking at manufacturers as an end user for the producer or the processor. And now, of course, the manufacturer would move on to a restaurant or to a caterer. Now, as I mentioned just now, the traditional market still command bulk, a lion's share of the trade today, but modern trade is gaining popularity. In overseas, I mean, in the Western countries, very hard for you to find traditional markets, but traditional markets still exist in many Asian countries. The modern trade are more popular with the younger generation. They don't like the smell walking in the wet market, and a modern trade, they can do a lot of other shopping as well in this kind of whether in Tesco or Giant or whatever. Now, as I said, many municipal councils are trying to phase out the wet market because of pollution problem, because of fly problem, odor problems. And so they are converting many of them. In the Klang Valley, if you go to Tun Dr. Ismail, you go to Taman Mega, you go to now even Penang, they are talking about converting the wet markets to dry markets. And the traditional markets obtain their products from non-VHM slaughter facilities. Hygiene and sanitation needs to be looked at and improved. The poultry exports largely only to live birds and eggs to Singapore, and we have yet to fully develop the rest. Now, e-commerce is something to look at. Just a very quick glance at this. Again, as I say, the whole bird, 50% go through the wholesale wet market and supermarket. A lot now some are turning to cut up parts, which is only about 20% of the product sold in the market. With that, I thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I pass you back to Mr. Terry Tan, our moderator.
Thank you, Dr. Yap, for your valuable insights on the market segments for processed poultry products. Dr. Yap just highlighted that there are 7 market segments for the poultry products in Malaysia that you can refer to his presentation slides later on. He also mentioned that there is a trend of transformation from traditional wet market to modern trades and dry market to attract youngsters to visit, and providing more hygiene and safety products to people in Malaysia. Thanks, Dr. Yap, for your sharing that the market segment in Malaysia, that I believe that all of us have a very good insight about the markets in Malaysia. We still have 27 minutes to go to the Q&A. Without wasting any time, we will proceed to the Q&A. Can all the panelists to turn on your video and microphone? Thank you very much. And we will go through first come, first served. We will go through one by one. And I believe that some of the questions Mr. Ong has answered that very fast. Mr. Ong, you are the very fast. I like your style. Yeah. All right, then we all answered by Mr. Ong. Okay. Still there are 6 open. Honestly, that today webinar there are less questions posted in the Q&A. I believe that everyone got a very good information from this webinar. So for the first one, hi doctor.
Hi.
Referring to you this question, this SCCP principle number 3. May I check with you on how many % of rupture of the intestinal and visceral damage is recommended as control limit? Well, very technical. How to evaluate the degree of damage?
Okay, so for the rupture of intestine, the percentage of the rupture or damage, it depends on the efficiency of the eviscerator machine. So the plant need to check back their eviscerator machine, what is the specification and what is the efficiency of the eviscerator. Then we can get the percentage of the rupture as a critical limit.
Can you give an example that what is a percentage in a common practice?
The common practice usually about 3% or 5%, but it will depends on the eviscerator efficiency machine. Okay. Because when you buy the eviscerator machine, is maybe 100% efficiency, but then you need to do the validation, anything to check back how much the efficiency of the machine.
All right, I hope that Dr. Rohaizan has just answered the question for that. And Doctor, your question to you again.
Okay.
Okay, can help clarify the CCP's example for 1.5 liter carcass for inside outside washer? what are the critical that set the process as CCP? Is there any processing plants that does? Also, I would like to ask, according to DVS standard, spin chiller require minimum 0.75 liter for carcass. Is it still relevant to your opinion?
Okay, for the CCP inside and outside washer, actually the water volume will be depends on the critical limit that set up by the establishment. They need to do validation and they will get the how many volume of the water that need to clean the carcass inside and outside the washer. Am I answering the question?
Yeah, I believe so. But how about the spin chiller?
Oh, the spin chiller. The next question, for my opinion, it will depend on the size of the capacity of the spin chiller. Because nowadays, maybe the big company, they have a big size of spin chiller, then they need to calculate again the volume in the spin chiller. It depends on the size of the capacity.
Okay, so is it 0.75 is required by the DVS or is common?
I'm not sure the standard one, but for my opinion, nowadays there's a lot of spin chiller. Maybe it's the modern one, the big capacity. So they need to check again with the engineer, then to validate again is it same with the standard or not.
Oh, okay, so it means that the 0.75 liter per carcass is not the DVS standard, right? So
I'm not sure because for my opinion, during this time, maybe it depends on the size of the capacity of the spin chiller.
All right, maybe you can try to find out whether it's a standard or it's a requirement for industry player to set up for the spin chiller. Thank you, Doctor. And okay, Doctor, they like you so much. A lot of questions to you.
Okay.
So I think a lot they're interested in the HSCCP. So it's a good sign that people are moving towards to the HSCCP. All right. So do all the processing plants HSCCP now? Who will be the people enforcing the HSCCP at those plants? That is from DVS department, right?
At the moment, only the VHM certification under DVS certification implement hazard system. But as we know that 70% of the slaughterhouses in Malaysia still a small size enterprise and do not have a VHM. But DVS in the process of revising our Animal Act so that all the poultry slaughterhouse will be under DVS supervision, but it will take times because it's related with the regulation.
Any foresee any expectation time frame to achieve the goal of DVS monitoring?
At the moment, we just do the consultation to the small size enterprise. For example, at the Terengganu and Kelantan, because most of the slaughterhouse is small size enterprise. So DVS officer, the veterinary officer, sometimes they go to the slaughterhouse and then they give the khidmat nasihat to upgrade their slaughterhouse.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you, Doctor. And sorry, Dr. Yap, you will be the next question. Another question from Dr. Rohaizan again. So what are the main issues encountered by slaughterhouse in terms of exporting poultry meats and value-added product? Besides HACCP, what can DVS do to support the export market? I think it's more on...
Okay, for the export one, because poultry and meat poultry is considered as high-risk product. So for the product to be exported to other countries, it depends on the importing country requirement. must comply with the importing requirements. Some of the countries such as Singapore, Japan, they have a strict requirement to export to their country, and HACCP is one of the compulsory for them. Maybe the establishment can export to other countries that do not require the HACCP, and maybe less import country requirement.
All right. Maybe Dr. Yap, you can add on some points of this question that besides HSP, what can DBS to support export market? I think it's more on market, right, Dr. Yap?
Yeah, I think there are many things to do here to try to improve our export market potential. We have a potential for exporting market. Our live bird production cost is probably as competitive as our neighbors like Thailand, and because of our more liberal policies on the importation of grain versus like what is in Thailand, where they have to use a high percentage of their local grain. And so our production cost in terms of at the farm level is very competitive. Our productivity at many of our farms, particularly those that are on a closed house basis, are very good. I think we can have achieved a fairly good FCR. So our poultry producers, farmers, are actually quite good. Of course, there's still plenty of room for improvement. Plenty of so a lot of things that the government has to help the industry to transform from open house to closed house. But it's a very big subject. I don't want to go too much into that now. And I think, but we are looking at it. We are looking at, the government is looking at it. FLFAM is looking at it and working with the government to see how this can be done. And also, DBS is promoting MindGap. Unfortunately, MindGap is still confined largely to the farms that are at in the south and not that many takers in the north. It has not become mandatory yet, so it's just a voluntary scheme for people to take on. Now, these are, without MindGap, you cannot talk about export there, because if you don't have a system now, another country coming in to look at whether they can buy your product or not, first they want to look at how you control the product at the farm level. It's not just your processing plant alone. They will go back to see, well, how are you producing this? Now, even animal welfare is a standard by itself for export. So you see the biosecurity, the hygiene and sanitation, the flock health management in your farms, all that has to be taken into consideration, largely already taken care of by MindGap. And then animal welfare also now is coming into consideration. Now, we have to strengthen all this in order to get sufficient numbers. Now, the other thing about export is efficiency at the processing. And I think I don't want to talk too much because Ong Chai Kin has addressed this very well. Are your processing standards up to the standard for export? Yeah. So I think if you take by and large how many processing plants we have in the country, if those that are SMEs and those that are without even VHM, forget about it. Yeah. So I think you have to look at it is a VHM, and then you have to look at your biosecurity control and so on and so forth, even in your processing plant. So there are many steps. And then we also, but the potential is there. We talked to Nitrate at one of our webinar. We talk about how to promote export, and Nitrate is just waiting to help processors, producers to export. JAKIM is also helping to export, and JAKIM has got a very good reputation as a very credible halal accreditation forum platform. So I think our potential is there, but what is needed in this poultry industry is how to make a product that comes out from the farm at a very competitive price into a product after processing that is competitive. Now, this, unfortunately, there is still a lot of work to do, because going from a farm product, a broiler live bird, to the product that you can export, you need economy of scale, you need a high productivity, you need good quality control, and you need to really bring down your processing costs, your logistic costs and processing costs. This, I mean, that means what? Improving your yield and improving your overall other processing. So there are many challenges here, some of which I think Ong Chai Kin has addressed. So Mr. Ong has already addressed some of this, and I think one of the reasons why the organizers of this webinar use Ong Chai Kin for this presentation is because another area that which we didn't talk about here, but we did talk about it in another webinar, was the importation of products, right? So the importation of product doesn't necessarily help the producers in the country. Yeah, but as long as you have a lot of product coming in cheaply from other countries, some might even be subsidized, cross-subsidized. I don't want to explain the concept of cross-subsidizing here. It takes too long. And then whenever they have some offer, they bring it in. Cheap, they offer, they bring. If they cannot go to very restrictive markets, very high demanding quality standards, then they'll try to bring it into the country. So into this Malaysia. So we are facing this. That kind of importation hampers the processors from going into what Mr. Ong Chai Kin was promoting just now. Now, we need the government support in this. We need government support. You must give some kind of a more support, policy support to the local processors to expand and invest into the industry, into the processing industry, so that we become competitive in the export market. As long as you open your door to anybody who want to come in and import the chicken, that's very difficult. I'm not saying that DVS is doing that, right? DVS has a lot of control now. I know that DVS is working very hard to control this, but I think we need to have a bit more caution on this area.
All right, thank you for your, Dr. Yap, thank you for your explanation. And I think you have just explained what the question was asking. And I believe that the floor will definitely understand that how we're going to tackle for the exportation market. It's basically from farm and towards the end products. So the performance management system has to be in place, even in the farming, sorting plants, every single process. Okay, then we go to the next question. Not much question. We still have time to finish all this. With 10 minutes, we can finish all this. Yes, 5 questions. Dr. Yap, Singapore has just approved self-culture chicken meat. What do you think and its potential as modern or future market? Dr. Yap, we can answer. Maybe Mr. Ong also can answer this. I believe you come across this, right? There's the self-culture chicken meat.
Yeah, so, I think yes. There's a lot of talk about it, but you know, consumers in this country are very careful. They want to look at now they even want to look at how the chicken is being produced, whether it's organic, not organic. Now this kind of cell culture meat is from the laboratory. What goes into it? Not many consumers know what is happening there. Secondly, customers, if you observe carefully, how do they do the marketing? You go to them, they would like to pick up the chicken even, you know, and turn it around this way, that way, and say, okay, this is the chicken that I want. They take up a tray pack, they turn it this way, that way, and say, okay, this is the pack I want. So can you do that with a cell culture meat? You have no idea how this was produced. So I think it's a very minor, very minor manifestation, and I do not see that this is going to threaten the mainstream producers.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I believe so. This cell culture chicken, as I know, that is a very niche market, and is produced in lab and in the factory. And some people might like it is more hygiene, right? They claim that it's more hygiene, less diseases. And like Mr. Ong just explained, that we need to invest a lot of machinery, automation machinery, to get the best product out from the factory. And this cell culture, I guess, is just a new trend in this world. So, any comment from Mr. Ong from your side? That is, you take it this cell culture chicken meat is a threat to your slaughtering plant industry?
My personal opinion, this cell culture meat is not well accepted by people at this point of time, and as a consumer point, like Dr. Yap mentions, I think not many people will go for the cell culture meat. So for next 10 or 20 years, we may not know what will happen in futures.
Thank you, Dr. Ong. I guess most of the people still like the real chicken meats and the real eggs instead of produced in the lab. All right, then we go for the next question. That this is I don't think we can answer that, right? In Malaysia, produce the cheapest poultry meats. Why are people still smuggling them? I think Marquis can answer that. Dr. Yap, you want to answer that, or just make it, Dr. Yap, or maybe just make it short for this one?
I think smuggling activity will always go on. I think you very hard to. So if somebody wants to get rid of some chicken quickly, and they can find a source of cheap chicken, and then they want to bring it over into the country. They probably, it's a non-authorized. You see, to bring in chicken from overseas, first of all, you must get DVS approval. You must get DVS must send a team of experts to inspect the factory, right? Just like if you want to export, then DVS will have to inspect your factory and certify that your product are fit for consumption and free from health hazards. Then you can export. Now, there are small producers and processors outside this country who want to sell their product. They cannot get DVS approval. And once they want to bring it into Malaysia, and then they can sell it cheap, what do? You smuggle, right? So I think we should never talk about smuggling. I mean, if it's a threat, then I think we should ask our custom and border control and markets to take a good look at it, because if it's a really, really big threat, then I think that is something to look at. I mean, smuggling happens with everything, yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Yap. I think it's a responsibility for everyone here, and as a resident as a Malaysian, to prevent any smuggling, not only the poultry meats or other things. So it's our responsibility not to do that, especially the smuggler. If you're not doing that, there will not be any smuggling to the Malaysia. And then that is against the government rules and regulation, that you shouldn't do that, even that is a good business. Because while you're doing that you will harm our industry. Then some of the people can lose a lot of money, and people will lose their jobs. And because of your selfishness. And I hope that throughout this webinar, that the question being asked in the floor, that we can pass a message to the people that do not do smuggling or any against the rule and regulation in Malaysia. All right. Is there any timeline set by the so for the question for Hugh Teck Long? Is there any timeline set by the government banning the live bird slaughtering in the wet market? Dr. Rohaizan, do you have any info of this? And I believe we have been talking about this quite some times, right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the answer? Repeat the question. Sorry.
It's the timeline set by the government, banning the live birds slaughtering in the wet market.
Actually, the regulation or rules have been done by the council, the local council. Is under their regulation that they don't allow anymore slaughtering at the wet market. But I think the implementation of the enforcement is still a big issue, and we can see still the slaughtering happen in the wet market. That one need to refer to the different agency also, because TPS and the local council are working together.
Okay, thank you. I just tried answer to the question. Thank you, Dr. Rohaizan. And to add on some that yes, it's depending on the state's government for the implementation. The rule and regulation have been introduced, but it's just implementation at every single state. All right, to Dr. Yap and Mr. Ong, how to make sure all slaughterhouse follow VHM as to make sure food safety to the Malaysian, not voluntary from Rohaizan.
I think, let me answer.
Yeah.
As I said just now, and also what Dr. Rohaizan just said, there are two classes of slaughterhouse in the country. Those that are under the VHM logo plant certification, therefore they are under the jurisdiction of DVS. They also have of course a business license from the municipal council. But there are many slaughterhouses that are actually under the jurisdiction of the Dewan Bandaraya or the local councils, all right, or municipal councils, and they have not made it mandatory that they must have VHM, because VHM is DVS, right? So unless the municipal council say, okay, I want VHM to DVS to come in, VHM is a policy here. It's a ministerial responsibility. DVS also cannot simply go in. Now, I think I should let Dr. Rohaizan talk about this, but many years of experience in DVS myself. We cannot simply cross over boundaries and say, I want to take over your slaughterhouses just like that. The municipal council have a revenue base for a lot of these slaughterhouses also. And then you cannot just simply take over their slaughterhouses and say, I want to run it under the VHM. There has to be a shift of a transfer of jurisdiction in the first place, as well as then also the question then comes also back to DVS. Do you have enough manpower to really take over all the slaughter facilities in the country? So this is a very big question, very big subject, and I think of course, we must move forward. We must move forward. The other thing, of course, maybe is to make sure that the municipal council, local councils improve the hygiene, sanitation, as well as the meat inspection. All right. Now, if I were to draw on my experience overseas, not every slaughterhouse is under Department of Agriculture or Department of Veterinary Services. There are under municipal councils, and they are in fact parked directly under the Ministry of Health. But they have meat inspectors. They are very qualified, very well trained meat inspectors and hygiene and sanitation officers, all right, inspecting all these slaughterhouses and butcher shops. So you can see that many of those slaughterhouses, they're not under the Department of Agriculture, they're not under the Department of Veterinary Services, but they are under the Ministry of Health, the Department of Health under the Municipal Council, and they do a very good job. They have very good meat inspectors, very qualified. So it's a policy decision that has to be made.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ya. I think you have answered it clearly for this question. All right. The last question is not the question, by the way. It's a 50% non-VHM plant. Yeah, maybe more. Yeah, it's not the question. I guess there's no more question from the floor. And thank you to all the speakers today and for your insightful info and valuable discussion on the topic that are related to modern poultry processing in Malaysia. Okay, I would like to summarize for today's webinar. The highlighted point from our first speaker, our respected speaker, Mr. Ong, and he mentioned the automated to drive a higher efficiencies, new technology to drive the consistency of quality such as the ACM, ASRS, and he also mentioned the digitalization, big data, IoT technology in slaughtering plants. Key to take home from our second speaker, Dr. Rohaizan, basically the importance of implementing the HACCP in processing plants. And key to take home from our Dr. Yap, understanding our market segments and the supply chain in Malaysia, the importance and upgrading from a conventional wet market to modern trade and dry market to achieve hygiene and safety foods to people. Before we are ending this webinar, I would like to thank our organizer, Agro-Food Productivity Nexus, AFPN, and FLFAM, and MPC. To our speaker, Mr. Ong, Dr. Rohaizan, and Dr. Yap, who have given a valuable and informative presentation today, and especially to the MPC team, who are helping and making our webinar successful. Cik Nadia, our MC today, and Puan Safura, and Puan Fatima, and the rest of the team members. Lastly, to our respected audience, to give your valuable time to attend our webinar today. I believe today's topics are more interesting and informative to private and public sectors. The very last webinar, number 10, is on the 12th December, on Saturday, 12 December 2020. We'll be presenting the modern poultry processing. This will be our final webinar to highlight the challenges in Malaysian poultry industry and what we can learn and strategize to achieve the sustainability in business. Firstly, to explore the various strategies and avenues for the poultry industry. Secondly, to diversify both in nature and in scope to stay sustainability. Besides that, we hope that our Malaysian government will fully support in our industry to grow and to become number one in Malaysia in terms of most advanced in terms of technology and the greatest of exportation in figure. Since our government has been encouraging our industry players to implement the IR 4.0 to achieve the greater efficiencies. And we would like to see more on the supports or packages to the industry in terms of encouraging the exportation of poultry products, especially that we need to upgrading ourselves in the downstream industry, such as the sorting plants and the future processing plant. Okay, please, the next slide. Okay, this slide is. Please register early and share with your colleagues and friends to attend the final webinar. And of course, you can share all the recorded video as you can that you can access from MPC website. Thank you very much to all the panelists today and to the audience. I would like to pass the mic to MC today to end our webinar today.
Thank you, Mr. Terry, and all speakers for the sharing. So just a friendly reminder, the email, stay tuned. The invitation will be emailed to all the participants today as soon as possible. And I think it has been a great day and a wonderful afternoon with all of you. Again, thank you and see you this Saturday. Bye.